Eat, Drink, DFW from the Dallas Morning News is made possible by Central Market.
Hey, North Texas food fans, it's time for another episode of Eat, Drink, DFW from the Dallas Morning News. Every week, our staff loves to dig into the local restaurant scene, talk about food and drink trends, and those things that make North Texas, North Texas. This is Anna Butler. I'm the News' food and events editor. We officially have Michelin's picks for Dallas and Fort Worth, and trust us, we also have some hot takes. So stick around, you won't want to miss this.
Central Market is really into food, like fish flown in so fresh it still has jet lag into food. Our sourdough starter has been around since grunge was a thing into food. We're talking more prime cuts than a greatest hits album into food. Central Market is really into food. If you are too, then we're the HQ for you. Whether you're a make every recipe in the cookbook foodie or a my favorite recipe is reheat type who just digs the delectable, no place makes every day more delicious like Central Market. Really into food. Shop now at centralmarket.com.
For the latest food and restaurant news, visit dallasnews.com/food. And we'd love to hear from you. If you have any food questions and need for restaurant ideas or just want to chat with the Dallas Morning News food team, email us at eatdrink@dallasnews.com. Today, I'm joined by our food writers Claire Baller, Sarah Blaskovich, and Imelda Garcia. And we're just going to jump right into this. We've had a few days to reflect now on the results of Texas's very first Michelin Guide, and we're going to get there. But Sarah, can you run us through what it was like to be at the actual award ceremony in Houston?
Sarah, yes, please tell us all the chismes. I want to know everything.
Yes. It was such a night, you guys. It was, first of all, really cool to see pretty much Texas's best chefs all in the same room. Pulling up to the ceremony in Houston, everyone was nervous. You know, chefs were excited, I think, to be there, but it was not silly and fun from the front.
And you knew if you were there that you were going to win something. You just didn't know what it was.
That's right. And it seemed fair that most of the people there wanted to win a Michelin star. This is the pinnacle, right? And there were 15 Texas restaurants that were named as one-star Michelin Award winners. But no one knew what was going to happen. And so it was interesting that when folks walked in, there was a red carpet. There was a guy playing a violin walking around the room with like one of those wireless electronic violins. And then there were past appetizers, but no dinner, which is interesting for a Michelin event. And I think that's how it always goes. And then when you walked into the main ballroom, which reminded me exactly of the Bomb Factory in Deep Ellum, if you've been there, a big cavernous black room with bars on either side. But instead of tables in the middle, there were a bunch of those see-through plastic chairs, you know, like those nice ones that are at banquets, just in rows. And so it felt very award ceremony-like and not dinner-like, even though we were here to talk only about food and drink.
So did you picture like a dinner before? I mean, because for me, it's like a natural thing and this is like so formal. No?
Yes, I did picture dinner. And again, I think this is how it always goes for Michelin. But the trouble is, you know, as much as we could prepare ourselves for this very important day in food journalism and in food in Texas, you know, then it just happens and you see it for the first time. It feels like next year, obviously, there's not going to be dinner. You know, obviously, we're going to know, well, everybody just sits in rows and waits for the MC to say their name. But it was incredible. It all kind of went fast. And we talked to a lot of Dallas folks when they came in. They took their seats and then the show began. And inside of 90 minutes, they said 117 different restaurant names. And when it started, I thought, this is going to take 4 hours. You know, how in the world are they going to get through all of these? And then, you know, they did a couple spotlights in the front, including that Rye bar manager Julian Schaefer won exceptional cocktails. Claire wrote a fantastic story about that. But then they announced a bunch of names really fast, all in a row. And it just went really fast.
I will say too, I never thought the award ceremony would actually start because the sponsor dialogue went on for half an hour.
Yeah. The other thing that I have heard from people watching from afar, and you guys tell me, is the production of the event, when you're not inside the event, is, shall I say, unremarkable. So I had people texting me to say, I'm sure the live feed is going to go out. And if it does, Sarah, will you please like do an Instagram live on your cell phone? And I thought, man, for such a revered company and, you know, a review system that is globally celebrated, I think that the event itself from afar probably could have looked a little bit better.
Imelda and Claire, y'all weren't actually just sitting there watching it necessarily. Y'all were in very different places and different venues that night, which is really fun. And I kind of love this this because there's a wild juxtaposition. Imelda was embedded with Panther City Barbecue in Fort Worth. They were having a party. They're not open on Monday nights. And it was like friends and family only. They were live streaming it on a bunch of TVs. And then Claire was in the kitchen at Georgie, which is definitely a Michelin hopeful in terms of maybe they get a star, maybe not, because there's been a lot of buzz around their new chef. But Imelda, it looked vibrant where you were.
Yeah, it was all happiness and excitement. And they have these 9 screens, and then on each of them was the ceremony. But the thing is,
wow.
Yeah, but you know when the streaming is like difficult? So in one screen you were seeing something and the other one was like 10 seconds. So it was like
the
crazy.
Future.
Yeah, like in the future.
Wait,
So,
oh no, that sounds frustrating.
the sound didn't work, so everybody was nervous. Yeah.
From the editing perspective, I was 10 seconds ahead of my boss, Christopher, when we were watching. And so I would be like, oh, and he would be like, what's going on?
Oh, that's, yeah. It's like sporting events. I mean, you know, where the person downstairs' TV doesn't sync to the one upstairs. That actually happens at our house. Yeah. From being there, I thought it was a really fabulous party. There was a champagne bar. There were people passing around food. It's just so interesting to me that it didn't look as glamorous as it was.
Can I ask who the most indulged person was at this event? Was there any sort of restaurant staff that was like, we really hit the champagne bar? I've got to know.
You know, everyone was so nervous. The beginning, even when they were like, how's everybody doing out there? You know, the host is trying to get everybody excited before they even say anybody's name. And I mean, you heard like 2 claps because everybody's just like, all right, let's get on with it. You know, I don't know how this is going to go. And how it did go is that one Dallas restaurant won 1 Michelin star. And there were no more stars for the rest of Dallas-Fort Worth. There were plenty of others in Austin and Houston, but not a lot in North Texas. However, we had quite a few recommended restaurants, 20 of those, and 7 Bib Gourmands. Bib Gourmands are the honors for more affordably priced restaurants. But to answer your question, Anna, man, this was a work event that I think at the end didn't quite go as most Dallas folks had hoped. We saw a huge moment for Tatsu Dallas, which won that Michelin star, and we saw the others feel glad to be there, but perhaps wishing for a different outcome.
I feel like there's going to be more drinking next year because there were so many unknowns for it.
I agree with that. And also, I did hear that a lot of the chefs went to the same bars together afterwards. And out of respect for them, and because I had a lot of work to do, I didn't go. The bar that they chose to go to was called Bad News Bar, which I think was just a coincidence. Some of them possibly did feel like they got some bad news that evening. But for the most part, I think it was just a bar that somebody heard was fun. And it was kind of fascinating to hear Dallas folks talk to other Dallas folks, me included, and say, I don't really know where to drink in Houston. You know, like if this party were in Dallas, they would be hosting people at their own restaurants. And in Houston, they're going like, I don't know, where does everyone want to go? How about Bad News Bar?
Well, I mean, I think they would end up being at maybe Inwood Tavern here in Dallas eventually if they were ever hosted in Dallas. And is there a chance that they would ever be hosted in Dallas?
There is. And I don't know if they will do that. We have 2 more Michelin awards secured for 2025 and 2026. They'll be in Q4, both of them. We don't know where, but the international director of the Michelin Guides, in an interview with the Dallas Morning News, said he's excited about future years being somewhere else. So we have 5 cities, you know, Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, Houston, San Antonio. And he made the suggestion that he wanted it to be in one of the other 4 cities in the next 2 years, but time will tell.
It's probably a good guess that it will be in Austin next year. I think considering how well Austin fared this year, also just centrally located.
Yes, I agree. And also, I don't know if you guys could hear this on the feed, but a lot of Austin restaurants won, as Claire said, and just the army of support from Austin felt so much larger than any of the other 4 cities. So when they would announce an Austin restaurant, especially for a Michelin win, and there were 7 of them from Austin, I mean, these people stand up, hooping, hollering. They were sitting in the front row. They were hugging. Our photographer was looking for moments to take pictures, of course. And we ran some incredible photos from Shafkat Anwar on the front page the day after the ceremony. You know, a little part of my journalism body wanted those big cheers to be from Dallas people because there was such emotion when we finally saw winning.
I have a huge correlation when I look at the Austin restaurants that actually got something because I've been to over half of them. One, my takeaway is we have restaurants that are just as good as a lot of those in Dallas that got nothing. And I feel confident saying that. I'm from Austin. I love Austin. That being said, a lot of these restaurants opened about 10-ish years ago, which feels like a category that was left off in Dallas, was ones that have been about a decade old.
Yeah.
In Austin, though, the food's good, but there was an onset of very uncomfortable chairs that started happening. So it was starting to be this style over substance thing, which my mom would probably say correlates to the number of Californians that have moved here, which is maybe not fair to say, except that these are now these very chic looking restaurants with really uncomfortable seats that if you're not like a 00, they're going to jam into your back.
I was just going to say, are we making a correlation between California and skinny diners?
It's maybe not a fair correlation either. I will say, I know people who, when they go to an Austin restaurant that are not from Texas, they feel a lot more at home when they're in Austin or at an Austin restaurant. There's something welcoming and people don't necessarily always feel that warmth in Dallas. And I do wonder if some of that maybe came across in these results.
You know, what I would really like for a listener to do, I know we've got a lot of Michelin obsessed people out there. I'd like for you to start a spreadsheet and make notes of which of the 15 Michelin starred restaurants in Texas have uncomfortable chairs. And please share this spreadsheet with us. There's a chance we will publish it.
There's a chance. And frankly, it doesn't have to be a spreadsheet. And maybe I already have this and I want to compare notes with you.
Anna's like, I've already thought about this. The U.C, the uncomfortable chair phenomenon, is something we're going to hang on to for a long time, I feel. Speaking of uncomfortable chairs, though they were stylish, those chairs that were put in the middle of the Michelin ceremony, also not comfortable.
A ghost chair is not comfortable.
No.
One thought on Austin. First of all, I was excited to see them do so well. I think we could sit and debate whether places deserve to be on there or not. But the reality is Michelin, using the same criteria they use around the world, deemed that they were. I also think that there's a very good chance that many of the Michelin inspectors who came to Texas live in Austin. That seems to be where they're spending the most time, perhaps. I mean, for me, it was motivating. It was just a reminder to make another Austin trip here soon and get to some of these spots that I haven't been to, at least not recently.
I am going to Austin soon and am delighted to go to places not on this list because I'm so excited they didn't make the list, which sounds horrible, but it means I can probably still get into them.
Yes.
But I was intrigued because there are some fantastic restaurants in San Antonio, and I do feel like those ones that I've been to recently in San Antonio made the list. That being said, a lot of the restaurants are in that very composed, very inorganic Pearl Street district, which is stunning and beautiful, where the Hotel Emma is, but it feels so manufactured to me, and it's meant to not, which is what's funny.
Yeah, they feel like restaurants from a catalog that you've seen before because they're so on the nose.
Yeah, Crate and Barrel actually popped out its own restaurant and it's there now.
Okay, one thing I want to point out, so we're looking at 15 restaurants in the state of Texas to receive a star. Chicago alone has 14 one-star restaurants. Manhattan has 51. We've got some serious work to do. I mean, we're talking about 15 in the entire state, right?
Yes, and if you were to drive to all of them, let's say you'd need 12 hours, maybe more, just to drive point to point.
Yeah, I think when you really look at the scope, I'm happy for the 15 restaurants. It's great, but this is a huge, huge territory. And I hope that we see a bigger list next year. And I think a lot of restaurants, Georgie's one of them. I know since I spent the Michelin night with them, a lot of restaurants feel serious pressure now to really prove themselves to Michelin. Well, first of all, I wasn't all that surprised, at least by the results in DFW. That being said, there's some things on the list on recommended and bibs and whatnot that were some head scratchers for me. Agreed. But in terms of how many restaurants received stars, I was expecting maybe 2, maybe 3 restaurants here to get a star, but not more than that. And the biggest reason for me is consistency. I think that is something we struggle with here as a restaurant community. And I don't think it's a struggle that is unique to us. But if you think about it, Michelin is looking for restaurants where they can tell someone who is traveling from across the world that, hey, if you go to this restaurant, you guaranteed will have a fantastic meal. You can't say that if you went to a restaurant and 2 nights had phenomenal meals and 1 night had a kind of experience, right? That's what Michelin is looking for. And there are restaurants here in Dallas that I think are phenomenal, and I have gone and I have had disappointing experiences where you can tell the head chef is out. The food quality is different, or you can tell there's front of house changes and service is just not exactly where it should be. And I think that's our biggest hurdle right now. And I think it's something that is very workable and something that a lot of restaurants have on their mind. What they're looking at right now is what changes do we need to make front of house, back of house, so that regardless of when someone shows up in our restaurant, we are ready and we're delivering the best that we can.
I'm the newbie here, and this really was like shocking to me that we only have one-star restaurant. Do you think this will prevent some other restaurants come to Dallas?
I think that's a question that Fort Worth restaurateurs specifically are asking. Fort Worth was shut out, no stars.
Yeah.
And there are a handful of really great restaurateurs in Fort Worth who I think believe they're certainly recommended worthy. Some could be bibs, and most all of them got nothing. And so, yeah, Imelda, I think there's some introspection here. Now, great chefs will say, and I've heard so many people say this in the last couple of days, there's nothing wrong with this good pressure, that Fort Worth will show up better next year, and that Dallas chefs will be better and they will make better hires. I was talking with Junior Borges about this specifically. He's not up for a Michelin star this year because he doesn't have a restaurant that he's working in, but he plans to in the future. And so he's a good barometer because, no dog in this fight today, but wants to be part of it next year. He said, I hope they don't give a lot of stars in the first year because there's room to grow. And you don't want to take a star away. That's one thing that I had heard Michelin kind of say in interviews was if you give a restaurant a star, they're going to be looked at hard next year. And if they're not good enough, that star goes away. And I think they agree, as the restaurant agrees, you don't want to do that. And so maybe you start small and you grow.
I also don't think any of us are saying there are restaurants on this list that shouldn't be there. I just think there should be more when I compare it to Austin. So I'm not looking at Austin and saying those shouldn't be there, but I'm like, if that's there, this should be there.
Can you give a good example?
When I look at other cities, a lot of the time I see really classic restaurants that are represented there. For instance, J.G. Mellon is on the New York list. I don't think it is exceptional food where you see a chef's personality on the plate, which is something that Michelin says that it takes into account. That being said, I can think of a place that I would have loved to see on this list that is a really unique Mexican food experience, which is Javier's. I think it is vibey. The ambiance is always so fun, but the food is exceptional and consistent. Don Artemio, that's another one that was shocking to not see even recommended.
That's right. And let me tell you something, a bonus, if you take in consideration more Mexican restaurants next year. You're going to have more cheering. You need a Mexican porra. That's what you need.
I really wanted more Mexican food and Tex-Mex. Some of my friends who are obsessed with Michelin thought Las Palmas was going to be on that list as bib or recommended maybe. Bib is tricky because Las Palmas is not inexpensive. Those incredible fajitas are $51. But I thought it might find a place on this list and it didn't. Now, Imelda, will you tell us about the taqueria that did make the list from Fort Worth?
Yeah, they had a great story. They are Birreria y Taqueria Cortez. They began selling menudo and birria at their home because one of the sons was without a job, so they needed money. This is 2019. So in 5 years, they went from selling menudo at home, then a food truck, and then a restaurant, and now they are in Michelin. This is the American dream.
There were 117 restaurants total in Texas that were mentioned by Michelin and received some kind of recognition or another. 28 of those are in North Texas. We wrote a ton of stories, and we still are writing more stories. You can find all of them, including the full list of winners at dallasnews.com/Michelin.
And we hope you do go read all those. We worked really hard, guys.
We actually have a lot of reader questions, and we want to get to those. We're going to take a brief break, and we will be back right after this.
Central Market is really into food. Like when we say cheese, it's in 12 languages into food. Butchers, bakers, and sushi roll makers into food. We're talking so obsessive about quality you can shop blindfolded into food. Central Market is really into food. If you are too, then let us turn your shopping list into a treasure map. Get inspired, get adventurous, or just get a chef-made dinner when you've got more taste buds than time. No place makes every meal more amazing like Central Market. Really into food. Shop now at centralmarket.com.
Welcome back. Today we are breaking down the results of the Michelin Guide, what those mean for Dallas, Fort Worth, and really the whole state. And we do have some reader questions that we're about to jump into. Claire, can you take it from here?
Yeah, so as you guys can imagine, and as you have seen, I mean, there are so many questions circulating about Michelin. I think we're all getting them from friends, from even family. Sarah, you literally just even mentioned that your dad is just peppering you with Michelin questions.
Yes, he is.
So I reached out to people on the World Wide Web and just asked for a few questions that they have of what they would like to hear us answer. So one question, this is kind of a fun one to get right into, is what are some must order items at some of the restaurants that we saw get Michelin recognition here in DFW?
Great news. We had Lana, who is on our breaking news team, just scour the internet for every single thing that you should order at, especially the Bib Gourmand restaurants on the list. Those are in theory the more affordable ones. And you can find those at dallasnews.com/Michelin. But I think we all have some takes. I think with Tatsu, for instance, our 1-star winner, you're not going to have a lot of say in terms of what you're ordering when it is a omakase style something, a chef's tasting menu anywhere. You're not going to have a lot of say, maybe unless you have a food allergy.
Yep.
But I think about Nona, perhaps on the Bib Gourmand list in Highland Park. That white clam pizza is one of my favorite things. That lobster ravioli, it's so good.
So Sachet is one of the restaurants that's on the recommended list. Their pita is divine. Their bowls are so good. Their menu changes seasonally, but they always have some type of bowls, and they always hit the mark for me.
I'll take Mat Hai Ba in East Dallas. It's close to my house. The side of garlic noodles has to be one of the most inexpensive and near perfect bowls of noodles ever. And the shaking beef at the restaurant, which is much more expensive than that side of noodles, also delicious. I also tend to try any daily special that Chef Peja has at Mat Hai Ba.
Of course, I'm going to say tacos. Go to the birreria. They are amazing. They are not as rich as any other birria, so it's light, but it's delicious. Go and order some tacos.
Nong Vietnamese Kitchen on Lower Greenville is on the Bib list. I love that place. I've never had anything that I don't love on the menu, but their spring rolls are, I think, my favorite in the city. And their Thai iced tea is so good, specifically the green Thai iced tea.
I also, this is a really hard one to phrase diplomatically, but Mr. Charles, which was not originally on the list that was distributed to us. It was The Charles, which is a sister restaurant. And I hate talking about this more because I think that there was probably a level of devastation for a staff that thought they were getting an award. And then, of course, that means conversely, another one was elated, but that one's really hard for me to talk about. That being said, if you go there, factor in ordering the canapes. They seem worth skipping if you're looking at the price tags and you're like, these are $15 a piece. It is a well-balanced bite. It is so fun. You need to budget for it. Don't just show up and be like, I'm going to spend $30 here tonight. We have a list of the places where you can spend $50 or less, courtesy of Imelda. Mr. Charles, not one of those, but that place is very fun and interactive. And it's a place where it's a talker the whole time about your food with the people you're with. So go with people who actually like food.
For those who aren't familiar, there was a bit of an oopsies. The day after the Michelin Award ceremony, we learned that the blurb on the Michelin website did not match the restaurant name at the top of it. The restaurant name at the top was The Charles. The blurb underneath it was for Mr. Charles. These two similarly named restaurants are owned by the same people, but one is an Italian restaurant in the Dallas Design District, and the other is a very upscale French Mediterranean Italian restaurant on Dallas's Knox Street. One more recommendation from me, Cadillac Barbecue made it on the Bib Gourmand list. And of course, the brisket there is good. I love the Hatch chili mac and cheese. I am not a barbecue sandwich person, but here I would recommend the Todd Father, which is named after Cadillac Barbecue founder Todd David. It's brisket, pulled pork, sausage, and coleslaw with barbecue sauce on a bun. And you guys, it is worth the Instagram picture.
All right, next question. How do Texas picks compare to what Michelin has historically chosen elsewhere? I think this is an interesting one, at least in my perspective. When you look at Michelin's picks in other U.S. metros, they line up pretty similarly. I mean, you'll see quite a huge range on the recommended lists and the bib lists, and even in the 1 stars of type of restaurant. So in New York, you have Cat's Deli on the bib list and Superiority Burger, which is a vegan burger joint. And you also have restaurants that are quite serious. And we saw that here in Dallas, even just on our bib list with Cadillac, Sarah, like you just mentioned, and Lucia. That's a huge range. And so what we saw happen here, at least in my perspective, lines up with what we've seen elsewhere.
I think in the future, Michelin might be willing to have a little bit more fun with this list. I don't think there were a lot of surprises here. Other than the taco shop in Fort Worth and the mention of non-Vietnamese kitchen on Greenville Avenue in Dallas, I think we could have guessed almost all of the rest of the list just based on fine food in Dallas, Fort Worth. And what I want in future years is some surprises. I want to learn a little bit of something about my city that I don't know. And I just don't know that they do that on the first year.
They mentioned that they wanted to lean into things that are important to Texas in and of itself. We did get the first ever Michelin Star Awards for barbecue. They have awarded different distinctions to barbecue places in other cities before, but never stars. And so I will say that was probably the biggest differentiating factor between any other market.
I asked Michelin about that, and the international director of the Michelin Guides said he was pretty amazed by the variety of barbecue, which was cool to hear because I think a lot of us, you think barbecue, you think smoked meats. There are some rules of how to make Texas barbecue, and there are people operating inside of those rules. However, when you looked at some of the entries on this list, you see different ways to take barbecue, even though we're working with some of the same ingredients. It wasn't surprising, but it was cool to watch Michelin look so seriously at those nuances.
And they didn't get the nuance of Tex-Mex.
No, they didn't.
Not at all.
Not this year.
I will die to see the spreadsheet of the inspectors to see where do they go and how did they evaluate each place.
They will never show us that spreadsheet.
I know. Right?
It would be fun to see, though.
I mean, we don't even know who they are,
I know,
much less
I know.
where the spreadsheet is. But, that's a dream, Imelda.
Yeah, it's a dream.
All right, next question. Do you have tips for how to get reservations at these restaurants that are now Michelin recognized?
Yeah, get to the website maybe 2 a.m. or 3 a.m.
I don't have tips about how to get a reservation because I struggle like the rest of us. But a lot of these higher end restaurants do have rules. And so the first tip is know that if they open their books on the first of the month at 9 a.m., at 8:55 a.m., you need to be available to get your reservation. But when I interviewed the Hungries, who we talked about last week, this group of people who eat in Michelin restaurants, they also said, an email to the GM saying, this is an important day for me and I'm going to be in the city for this reason. Can you please find a spot for my two top? Sometimes that works. So there's one tip,
That's
I
a good
guess.
tip.
I also think that's a good tip if you're traveling somewhere. That being said, maybe it works for a special occasion here, but for those of us who live in Dallas, Fort Worth, I would say you got to get comfortable with this reservation not being on Friday or Saturday night. If you want to eat at some of these places or it feels important to you to tick these off your bucket list, go break away from the norm. Some of them even serve lunch. It's a little different than the dinner menu a lot of the time, but if it's just important for you to eat there, you don't have to be there on a sceney night, right?
Yeah, and you have to change the mentality of thinking, okay, I have this night open and it's going to be a date night and let's get a reservation. No, the opening will dictate what night you get to go have a date night or whatever it is.
And you could 100% eat at my favorite time. 5 p.m. You can be asleep by 8:30. It's going to be great. And guess what? There are always 5 p.m. reservations. And I don't know why.
Grandma Anna is there enjoying her early supper. No, I'm just kidding.
Other tip is if I was anyone who is wanting to get into some of these restaurants right now, I would wait. There's always a lot of initial hype. We've seen that. I don't know if you guys have checked in on the reservation sites for some of these restaurants, but ones that I know for a fact had openings just last week, in fact, do not now. I think things will taper off a little bit as the initial excitement dies down. So maybe wait a month or 2 or 3 or 4 if you can. But this is a good time to also bring up that there are a lot of places on the recommended and bib list here in DFW that you don't really need a reservation. And I don't think you really will even today, especially if you're popping in for lunch. Some of these are lunch spots. Now, if we're talking about barbecue like Goldie's or Panther City, those have always been no reservation and have always been get there early, barbecue sells out. Okay, and so this last question I want to get to with you guys, I think is an important one. And it's one that no one has asked outright specifically, but we have seen a lot of comments and a lot of discussion about it, which is if I am someone who doesn't really care about the hype around restaurants, why should I care about Michelin? Why does this matter? What are your takes on that?
I would say if you don't care about the hype around restaurants, then of course you shouldn't care about Michelin. That doesn't make sense to me. I like knowing other people's Richter scale for what we have here, sure. It is meant for people traveling to new places to have a guideline of where to eat. That's where I care about it, probably a little bit more outside of my own city, because I'm not going to stop going to my spots that didn't make the list. In fact, I'm more likely to go there now because I'll actually be able to get into them.
I think this is life-changing, not only for restaurant people, but also like for farmers and other local business. And if somebody that had been in many, many restaurants recommends some kind of food, that should be good. They must know something.
My answer to this question is more of a human one. When I opened our Dallas Morning News on Tuesday morning, I saw a couple from Japan who moved to New York and then moved to Dallas to open a restaurant to serve the food their family has served for generations. The man is wearing a cowboy hat, a Japanese guy who lives in Texas now, and his wife, who is the server at the restaurant, and he is the chef. And I burst into tears looking at this picture and at these people who I've gotten to know. I'm referring to Tatsu Sakaguchi and his wife, Hiroko Sakaguchi, who own Tatsu in Deep Ellum. I think this is life-changing. This man's family, he comes from a 4th generation sushi family. They've never won a Michelin star in his family. They've never gotten a Michelin star in his town in Japan, and they've now received the first Michelin star in Dallas. It makes me want to cry for them because it's so special. And this list is full of people who dedicate their life to food. And I think that's more important than anything.
Sarah, that's such a good point. And in that same vein of a human element, what this is going to do for our restaurant industry in terms of job opportunity and in terms of stability and hiring is huge. I talked to several staff members at Georgie, a lot of whom have just recently moved here from California, and they are very serious about food. They have come from 3 Michelin star restaurants, but life became hard for them to live. Buying a house was not an option where they were. And now they feel like they can have the same career ambitions that they had, but be able to do that in a place that is a little bit easier to live in. I've also talked to chefs who said this is going to make it easier to hire and to retain people now that they're in an environment where stars are possible. Think about anyone in your career. If there's an opportunity to work at the highest level and work with people who perform at the highest level, that's appealing. And now Texas has that kind of carrot.
I'll say on a personal note too, if I may, that this was the story of my career so far. This was something we prepared for years and then months and then days. Everything we wrote really mattered. And now that it's all over, I feel really proud of the work this team did. This is about the city I'm from. This is about the city we all live in now. There's also this journalism moment for me. What we produced online and what they chose to put on the front page of the Dallas Morning News, it's about food. You know, that doesn't happen very often. It made me proud. And I think it's fair to say Michelin is not everything to all the restaurants here. We know that. There are 16,000 restaurants in DFW and such a small percentage, 28 restaurants in DFW were mentioned a few days ago. But the work that we put in order to try to explain this to people, I'd like to think it really mattered.
That unfortunately is all the time we have for today. We could talk about this for so much longer. You can reach out to us with your food thoughts, but definitely your Michelin thoughts and reflections by emailing us at eatdrink@dallasnews.com. We appreciate you tuning in, and we would love to hear from you. This show is produced by Julie Fisk. To catch up on every episode of this show and hear more from our newsroom, just follow the Dallas Morning News wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, please rate the show and leave a review. Find links to all of our work at dallasnews.com/listen. Or for Michelin stuff, dallasnews.com/Michelin. For the news, I'm Anna Butler. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Eat, Drink, DFW from the Dallas Morning News is made possible by Central Market.